1 second, everybody. There we go. What's going on, family? Welcome to the third master class. This is the 3 ways that you can expand. You haven't known already, this is Brother 𝐁𝐫𝐶. It's a guide that I created so you can move from initiate to an adept in anything that you choose. This is a universal principle and breakdown in a guide. So let's go ahead and dig into it today. It's going to be very short, pretty simple. So let's get with it, right? So let's talk about already data, technicals, and cognitive functions. Now y'all can see the old master over here, and he has the powers at his fingertips, and that is the level of mastery that we can all achieve, that we can all accomplish if we know the right steps. So look, we live in a world made up of data, and by this nature, you must realize that data is only the raw materials and not the final product of creation. As you move down the roadmap to autonomy and improve your self-awareness, it will be increasingly important to know this process so you can achieve the results that you hold dearest to you. So family, I just want to break this down for a second, right? So I have 3 parts of the road from initiate to an adept, right? So it always starts with data, then we get to the technicals and the mechanicals, and then we get to the cognitive functions, right? So I'm going to ask you real fast, what is the difference between information and wisdom? Think about it for about 5 seconds. I'm going to count down on my fingers. Let's figure it out. It's the level of understanding. It's just like preparing a top-tier meal. And I'm going to break down that analogy as we go through these next few slides. But that's it. That's the only difference between information and wisdom. It's the level of understanding. So look, the things you want are all around you. But first, and this is the key thing, you must identify your goal, right? From there, you begin your journey to becoming an initiate, right? So these master classes are flowing together, right? We talked about the roadmap to autonomy and going on these missions, right? And then we talked about self-awareness, right? What can we do to get better at doing X, Y, Z? And now we're talking about expanding yourself. So realize by now, clarity is the first step. So clarity on what is the goal that you're trying to accomplish? Identify your goal, and from there you can begin your journey to becoming an initiate. An initiate is really just somebody who's getting familiarized with new information. You have initiated your journey into mastery, right? Remember, mastery is a journey, and there's tiers to it as well, right? So just because you get to this level we're actually going to talk about that, I think, in the next class. But when you get to the level of unconscious competence, there are still more levels to go. So remember, first and foremost, you got to identify your goal. So you start off as an initiate, and this is the gathering stage. So at this point, you have identified your goals and are not tasked with gathering the data about that skill set or subject, right? And that should be now. I'm going to correct that when you look at the actual slides. But you have identified your goal and are now tasked with gathering the data about the skill set of subject. This is where you begin to read, watch videos, take classes, etc., to pull in the information. This is the raw material stage, right, family? Remember that, right? So, like, say you want to learn to swim and you've never jumped in a pool, right? You're going to take swim lessons. You're going to learn how to float. You're going to learn how to kick. You're going to learn the different strokes and things like that, right? So you're just learning as much as you can. This is the first stage. And then you move into I call it the advanced initiate, or the mechanical stage. So after you've learned about the skill set of subject, you must now learn the steps involved in using this data. At this stage, data has become information. Your studies are now informing you on how to use this info or skill. Back to our meal analogy, you got the groceries, that's the data. Now you got to cook. This is the mechanical portion of it, right? And so typically at this point, like say you're making a meal or something, you're usually looking at the recipe. Okay, I need half an onion diced. So you're doing the mechanicals. Boom. The first stage was going to the grocery store, getting the food. Second step is actually cooking the food according to the manual, right? This is pretty straightforward. I hope everybody understands, right? First thing, I'm just learning as much as I can about it, right? And then now I'm learning, like, okay, well, I learned, I learned that I need all this different food stuff. And then now I'm like, okay, cool. I need to prepare it so I can cook it and then cook it. It's pretty straightforward. Remember this. This is where most people stop here on their pursuit and never become an adept because of the missing last step, right? And an adept is like, you could call it a master, but they just have a deeper understanding of the knowledge they're dealing with. Most people don't become adepts because they missed the last step, family. Remember that. Remember this, right? This is the cognitive stage, right? So I call it the cognitive function, but this is the adept stage. Look, have you ever tried to copy the same dish your mom, dad, or your grandparents made? You did exactly what they did, or so you thought, but the result's just not the same, right? So if you ever moved out of your parents' house and you started cooking on your own and whatnot, and you see what they're cooking, and you're like, all right, cool, I'm gonna make it when they're not there, and you whip it up, and it's just not the same. You're like, yo, what the heck? It has to be something special. That's adept knowledge that they hold. So this is like a cognitive process. So the root in cognitive is conscious intellectual process. And it takes time to hone in on what I call the subtle steps. By practicing, tweaking, and having lots of trial and errors, as well as internal and external feedback, you can begin to master anything. Most people are just like, look, it's close enough. I'm cool with it. I'm good with it. I'm gonna stay there. And they don't get to this stage of being able to have like the perfect balance, right? Look, most things can give you the mechanical steps, and it's going to give you a template. It's going to give you the rough draft. It's going to give you good enough. The adept stage is uniqueness. It's authenticity. It's the creme de la creme. It's the signature that you put on anything, right? You become the top of your game, or you become the master of something in particular, or you have a particular set of skills, like Liam Neeson. That's the adept stage. Most people have skills, but they're not very particular, right? Everybody has the same skill. But the people with the adept knowledge, the adept stage, they have the same skill as everybody else, but they just have something, it's their own. It's their own. Like chefs, Chefs have different styles. You go to somebody's house who cooks one way and it's like, wow, that's cool. And you give somebody the exact same ingredients and they'll cook it a whole different way. And you're like, wow, what the heck? And that's the adept stage. That's how this is a process of getting to this point. I just want to highlight that difference, right? And this is the large step going from what I call the advanced initiate to the adept. It's the simple step that most people forget is consistency. Consistency, the mindset that most trick themselves out of is to remain a student. Constantly learning, constantly seeking to improve. Immersion is the true key, family. Look. Most people get to the point where like, I know it all. I'm cool now. You don't know it all, family. There's always more to learn. There's more practice to be had to master things. Then if you feel like you master something, you can stack things on top of that. And you'll realize when you start stacking, now things become different because there's a new variable involved. Right? It's easy to throw a jab perfect or a cross perfectly 1,000 times. But can you throw a hook then a cross perfectly? Can you throw a hook, roll, and a cross perfectly? You got to be consistent. You have to have the mindset of a student. Like if you ever was interested in something off rip and you're like, yo, I'm going to go study this stuff. And you have that hunger, that thirst, that knowledge, or that zest for knowledge. And you're just consuming as much as you can about this subject. And everybody's felt it before. You get to that point where you're like, just not hungry for the knowledge anymore. That is the very moment where you have to find something deeper. You got to dig deeper. You got to go back to your why. You got to dig into your clarity on why you even started this path in the first place. Because that moment you get comfortable, that moment you get complacent is the moment you start declining and you miss out on that next step. The biggest progress is made when you don't want to do something. I want you to realize that the biggest progress is made when you don't want to do something. Have you ever not wanted to work out and you say, I'm going to do it anyway? And it ends up not being like it's not the best workout in terms of like everything that happened. It's the best workout because you feel best after. Like you're like, wow, I'm really glad I went. I'm really glad I went. That's the same thing with practicing consistency, family. And immersion. Drop yourself into the world. They'll say like, if you ever want to learn a new language, just move to a country and you'll have to pick it up to survive. Your body is forced to survive, so it will become the best version of itself, right? So this is the large step. Is being consistent. Immersion is powerful because you can't not slack off. Otherwise, you will suffer, and you don't want to suffer. So you stay consistent, learning the language, paying attention, picking up a body language, reading books, doing whatever you're doing. That's the large step. It's consistency, okay? And so look, it's a simple process. I'm just gonna be honest with you. It's simple. Simple, yes. Easy, no. Why? Because we live in a microwave society, and with shrinking attention spans and a disconnection from self, we fall further from our highest potential and have become increasingly comfortable at where the pieces may lay. Like we stop realizing that we are co-creating this world. We think life is just happening to us, and so we're like, it just wasn't for me. I didn't pick up everything because it just wasn't for me, or that's just not my cup of tea. Maybe it is, and you just have to. My dad used to tell me this all the time. It's an acquired taste. Most things are acquired knowledge, acquired mastery through years and hours of hard, dedicated work. So look, to gain a level of adept mastery, there must be conscious action and continual improvement on your end. And you can listen to more details by clicking the link below. I'm going to drop it in here somewhere. Again, check out the Conquer Proof podcast. I'm going to be diving in on these subjects a little deeper, just in a different spin perhaps. And it's also going to be new topics on that I'm dropping, right? So you want to tune in to the Conquer Proof podcast. That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm teaching people to basically discover their Conquer Proof life. It's a very simple thing, but I'm not here to talk about that right now. So realize this, family. Mastery has two roots, right? So you can become the initiate and then you can become the advanced initiate, but typically going from the advanced initiate to the adept is a longer process. That's mastery, and it has two routes. Very simple. Look, you can go the trial and error route by yourself, or you can take the shorter route by enlisting in mentorship or coaching. Look, I say or for a big reason. You don't need mentorship. You don't always need coaching. You are just going to take an extremely long time. Look, and you can actually do it by yourself. It's usually just 3 times as long, hard, and expensive. You're going to buy a whole bunch of books. You're going to waste a lot of time because you're going to be reading things that a lot of books may repeat, or you may spend a lot of time researching, trying to find this particular book or this particular information and doing all this other stuff. And eventually you get to the point where you're like, you may not be able to find certain information. So you're going to have to go the intuitive route where you have to just feel and flow with your body, and hopefully what you've learned and what you're practicing are incongruent with the truth of the knowledge itself. Or what you can do is get a mentor or get a coach, somebody who's familiar with the subject and can help you get to that level where you want to be at. That is the key. That is the truth. Most people don't think about it. You don't hire a mentor or a coach because you can't do it. You hire a mentor or a coach because you want to get there faster and efficiently. And it's not about just getting there fast. It's getting there more efficiently, using your time, energy, and effort in a way that's most conducive to your ultimate goal. Most people don't want to learn a skill set or some new information just for the sake of they want to be able to apply it after they learn it. That's where coaching and mentorship is so important, because it gets you there a lot faster. And I'm just putting that in your ear and I'm putting that in your attention. So when you go through these stages, once you get clarity, you know that there is this large learning curve, and it's not necessarily from initiate to advanced initiate. It's usually from advanced initiate to adept. That's where people get mentors. That's where people get coaches. So I just want to put that in your ear. I hope this was very useful for you all. Thanks for showing up. Again, this is Brother 𝐁𝐫𝐶. I'll talk to you on the last 2 masterclasses. Peace.